It's been a year of petitions and protests, with one of the biggest outcries being over the introduction of the so-called toilet tax.
An online petition has taken place. 6,300 people have recorded their views on this petition. I take it inside, and then that petition becomes a Tim World petition in the name of Amy Burns. Only one signature, but she's recording that this happened, and she's asking on behalf of those 6,300 people for us to not introduce the sewerage charge.
Members of the public also made their feelings known about the threatened closures of the main post office branches in Douglas and Ramsey.
I think that's absolutely disgusting because so many people use this post office, especially for the elderly. They come into town to do their little bit of shopping on their pension day, and they meet people here. So I think, no, it's disgusting for them closing it.
They seem to be able to spend plenty of money on things like this and round by the clock tower, and yet the essential services seem to be suffering.
Well, between the post office network, it loses about £700,000 a year. The Ramsey and the Douglas one equals out to just over £500,000 loss each year. And with that, we have to actually address the losses across the business.
That was in Douglas. A few days later, more than 400 people turned out to a meeting in Ramsey. There's since been a stay of execution of 3 months. Meanwhile, we were warned the pension pot is running out, and it was left to Bill Henderson to explain why.
The Manx system has been in place for decades. It's coped with a developing community and population, changing demographics. It's been reciprocated with the UK, so every change they've made, we've had to put bolt-ons here, which has caused a bulky, cumbersome bureaucratic system.
We reported it was the end of an era for the horse tram service, but then new Infrastructure Minister Phil Gaughan upset the apple cart over plans to move the tracks onto the promenade.
Retailers were deeply concerned at the proposal with the way things were going, with the horse tram track being actually on the promenade, but at the side of the promenade. They were concerned about loss of parking spaces. So we had a look at this, and a suggestion had been made, well, why don't you put the track onto the promenade walkway? So I, not unreasonably, then asked the question, and a whole range of different officers said, well, yes, actually, that's not such a bad idea, but formally, when we'd thought about doing that, there had been problems in terms of the Iris tanks at the sea terminal end of the walkway, so that had made it difficult. But I said, well, can we have a look at that to see whether that's resolvable or not? And they've now thought, well, actually, it possibly is. So we didn't want to crack on with phase 2 and then find that we've designed something which we then had to change again at a later stage. So that's why we delayed the start of phase 2 this month. And now I think we're taking the view that we should ask the public and indeed all the decision makers what their views are, whether we should go with the originally designed scheme or whether we should now look at another version of the scheme, which would be putting the tram tracks on the promenade walkway.
And that one's still up in the air. In a year that saw several road tragedies, proposals were announced to up the driving age from 16 to 17.
I mean, it's a terrible thing to say, but I lost my daughter in a car accident as well. She was it was a driver that was going too fast, and he was a young driver, and I really think that some of these children, they are children, I don't care, some of these boys 17, 18, they get in the car and they're showing off to all their mates. If they really were restricted, and you can have restrictors in the speed in the car, I genuinely think that would make a great difference if they clamped down more on the police actually catching these people, and if they've got an R plate, make sure it's really well displayed so that they can be seen and they can be monitored. And plans to introduce car parking charges inflamed public opinion.
I think it's outrageous, really. You should be allowed to park for free. They want people to come in and use the shops, don't they? The local shops, but they want you to pay to come in for the pleasure. You know, you'd be better off if they want to stop people buying off the internet, don't they? So if you get them into town, give them some free parking.
It's just going to be very expensive for a lot of people is all I think about it, really, and parking's expensive enough as it is, to be honest. But
probably bad for businesses. Other than that, unless you provide an alternative somewhere, that's free out of town slightly.
This is something the government has now backtracked on, and no doubt one of the issues we'll be reporting on in 2015.